Hi, and welcome to Peer Support for Everyone, where you can learn how to be a resource to support the mental health of all the people in your life. I'm Tim Desmond, the founder of Peer Collective, which is the home of the best peer counselors in the world.
And I am Yamun Wang Mashar, but you can call me Moon, and I am the director of peer counseling here at Peer Collective. And today's topic is Introduction to Peer Support.
The first question that we want to talk about, the first topic that we want to talk about is what does peer support mean? What does that term even mean? So, Moon, what for you? What does peer support mean? What are the kind of core parts of that?
I think because the constant theme of the many stigmas around relating to and identifying with mental health struggles and or crises is fear and the shame of being vulnerable and finding safe space to share. Peer support is a groundbreaking bridge between communities and individuals that help to normalize conversations and supports around mental health. While so many other professionals and titles find it difficult or against policy to share in detail the experiences that might mirror others, peer support offers a transparent and mutual relationship where information gathering and sharing is not buffered or dictated around a set of checklists, one-sided goals, rigid models, or predetermined agendas, outside of being the healthiest and happiest form of oneself, determined by oneself.
Yeah, yeah. Like for me, I often think about peer support as like um, sort of contrasted with professional psychotherapy, and I think that professional psychotherapy done well can have a lot of these kind of humane and humanistic elements. But when you look at how states define professional psychotherapy, there's always some sort of clinical part where for me, when I think about it as like a helping relationship that is largely based on diagnosing and treating mental illness. On the other hand, for me, peer support means a helping relationship based on some shared experience. And the way that peer support happens in different contexts, sometimes it's really specific what the shared experience is, right? If you go to a 12 step, it's like obvious where, the shared experience is we're both addicts and we're providing each other peer support. If you're a peer support specialist in a treatment center for people recovering from psychosis, then the shared experience again is like something about a diagnosis or an
Mm.
experience of a psychotic break. Um, but what I find kind of revolutionary, like in this sort of broader definition that we're both talking about here, is the idea of a helping relationship based on whatever shared experience is significant to you. So it
Absolutely.
could be some piece of your identity, it could be some like specific thing that you've experienced, some, any other category. It could be your like political or religious orientation, whatever that, but that it's based that there's something that we share, and that as like I'm coming to somebody for that type of sharing.
Yeah.
Um, so then if people are wanting, so then the next topic is if people are wanting to provide that type of support for the people in their lives, um, what what do you view as being some of the most important elements to create an alliance, to create trust, and to sort of to create the best type of relationship to deliver peer support?
Yeah, I think even when I give peer support in my own personal life and from the past positions where I worked in peer support, one of the things I really thrived on and used as a foundation is that I got rid of any sort of hierarchy or any sort of movement that made me feel like I had the answers, because sometimes it's a journey of getting to know each other, and that's how we're going to both determine how we're going to be able to both see eye to eye, and that it just builds and reinforces such an authenticity to the relationship. And so I think that also finding a mutual and understood narrative of what someone is sharing and where your story or where your experience could be able to integrate into it, and making sure that it's that the mutual piece is confirmed by both sides. And sometimes that comes from in the building of the relationship, building the trust, and creating that safe space to have somebody be able to humbly ask questions that need clarification. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that again, it's like this distinction of like not being an expert. And
Yes.
sometimes what I like to think about it is like when you're offering peer support, you're not an expert. You're something better.
Yes.
You're a human being who cares and who can relate,
Yes.
right? And I feel like so my background in mental health outcome research really shows like that feeling is really what helps people more than really more than anything, but that type of real relationship of like you can relate. So yeah, I the non-hierarchical, non-expert um, like piece of being able to and the authenticity that comes from that,
Mhm.
like the feeling like I like my job is just to be myself and to
Yes.
show up and to try to like when I think about peer support, when I think about building alliance, the first question for me is well, the first question is the person that I'm talking to, are they looking for support?
Yes.
Because if they're not, then you're not offering peer support. You're like sort of like attacking somebody
Yeah.
with your views or your like you can very quickly steer into like nagging, bullying, like all of
Yeah.
those sorts of things. That for me, peer support always has to come from there's someone who is looking for support,
Mhm.
and then if I'm providing that support, then I need to know why.
Yes.
Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Because I want to, like, because otherwise, if I know that if someone comes to me, and we'll talk about examples in a minute, but if someone comes to me and they're just telling me about their distress, some whatever thing that happened to them, I don't know what kind of support do they want. Do they just
Yeah.
want me to listen? Do they
Yes.
want me to help solve problems? Do they want me to sort of like share like similar experiences and just relate? Like I don't know, but initially until I ask. And so I need to have a sense of like what is someone looking for
Mm.
as they're coming to me, and to make sure that there's an idea that I feel like is really important to this type of support that I call the motivational boundary.
Yeah.
And the idea of the motivational boundary is if I'm coming to you for support, I'm curious what you think about this, but if I'm coming to you for support, um, any motivation, like all of the motivation to change needs to come from me.
Yes.
And that from you, like if I'm just telling you about a problem in my life and you're trying to tell me how I should change, if the motivation is coming from you, I'm going to experience, I'm going to start resisting. I'm going to like
Yes.
get defensive.
Yes.
I'm not going to feel like you really get me.
Yeah.
So any piece about wanting to anything that's beyond just wanting to feel understood.
Yes.
So once we go past like you understand me and where I'm coming from, and we get to like actually change, it's got to be the all of the motivation has to come from me.
Absolutely. I think I love that you brought that up. There's a few things that really stood out for me in what you said. One of the biggest pieces is really respecting someone's worldview, the way they're viewing and experiencing the world, and not being able to dictate that because of something you've overcame or the ways that you have now, examined a situation that someone is trying to tell you about. Also, I think it's respecting that everyone is in their own process and has their own process to coming to the terms of what their idea of happiness and wholeness means, or getting back to that, or wanting to get back to that. Because sometimes when people are in crisis, they just need somebody to listen. They're not here to get the response of this is the next steps that I need to take. And it's not even only about getting defensive. sometimes it starts to chip away at that safe space you've created for somebody to want to share. Because if you have this automatic response of fearful of judgment, it starts to make people feel like what they're going through, or what they're talking about is staying in your head as a set of a timeline, or agenda responses that you've already, so you're not actively listening, you're not there wholeheartedly listening to them, because you're listening to respond.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree. So the idea, like the way that I think about it is actually like this introspective piece, right? So
Yeah.
someone comes to you looking for support. The real question about motivation, again, for me, is the question of like, when someone comes to you looking for support and they're telling you about their distress,
Yeah.
how do you feel in your body? Because if your motivation to try to help them change or to try to help solve whatever problem it is, if that's coming because you feel uncomfortable listening to this person's distress, it's going to come across as a lack of acceptance for
Yes.
them, that
Yeah.
you're not really accepting them where they are. You're like, it comes across, and you don't need to say this,
Hmm.
it just comes through you, that if what's happening is like, if you're coming to me telling me about some, a difficulty that's happening in your life, and deep down, I might not even be aware of it, but deep down, what's happening for me is this is making me uncomfortable. Can we please talk about the solutions?
Yes. Yes. That's
And
right.
it's going to land to you like this person can't even tolerate me
Yeah.
where I really am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the first piece about peer support is being able to tolerate life is messy,
Mm.
right? And I can just be with you and
Yep.
just be trying to understand your experience and relate to your experience, but that I can, at the very least, I can tolerate that this is a hard moment for you, and I can be with you in it,
Yes.
instead of like it makes me so uncomfortable that I'm needing to make
Yes.
it go away. Like I feel like that for me is such a big piece about alliance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it gets right back to even the conversation of avoiding that hierarchy of I'm here to provide the roadmap
Yeah.
for you, rather than you being able to maneuver your own experiences and be able to narrate it in the ways that's authentic to you.
Yeah.
I think also having the patience to be able to allow somebody to carry on their thoughts into completion, even though if it doesn't make sense to us, having that humble curiosity of asking the questions to make sure that we have a clear understanding, so that we're not running in our minds with an idea of a person, or an idea of what they're going through, without them confirming for you that this is what I'm experiencing. So I think it's really, really important to be able to stay in that space of understanding, before going anywhere else outside of that conversation, even to the point of relatability. I think it's really important to really center this person who's vulnerable enough to come into this space that we've created and talk about something, that a hardship or a struggle that they're going through. We need to honor that by being able to create that sacred act of just like listening, with such a wholeness, that does not make the other person feel like they need to rush through, or they need to prove to you, or and go through and give you other examples about why they're going through something they're going through, why they're experiencing it the way that they're experiencing it.
Yeah, like for me, like what that speaks to is when I'm sort of trying to support someone in this way, what I like to do for myself is I basically say like, my job is not to fix anything. My job
Yeah.
is not to make you feel better. My job really, if I'm going to ask for something from myself, it's to love and accept you
Yes.
exactly as you are in this moment of pain and confusion. Can
Mhm.
I be with you and
Yes.
accept you and love you right in this moment of confusion and pain, and there are no and we don't know what the answers are,
Hmm.
and like that's hard enough.
Yeah.
And then the next step for me is like, then there it can get to this beautiful point where the person is where I'm like, okay, so does it feel like I'm understanding it? And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, it feels like you get it. Now,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Where do we go from here? Yeah.
And there's this where do we go from here moment
Yeah.
where it's like now it's natural and we're together
Yes.
and we can start to talk about, and wherever that goes, like for
Yeah.
me, the part of what makes it peer support, it's really the same as what I suggest for professional psychotherapists. When you get to the where do we go from here moment, that all you're bringing some as an individual, you have some real resources that you've used
Hmm.
to get through moments like this.
Yes.
Not, you don't have an infinite amount,
Yeah.
but you don't have zero. So everybody has something to offer in that where do we go moment.
Yeah.
And developing more tools is great,
Yes.
but everybody has something, especially if you can if you can really relate to what they're going through. You've been through something like that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so then we can get to that where do we go, and it's just about like where that can it's so much more natural to be able to offer what resources you've developed in your life, and it doesn't need to come from a manual or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because when you're on the same page there, you're two human beings, you're like intelligent human beings figuring out, how to get through a tough situation.
Yes.
And you don't, yeah, like in those moments, expertise can help, but it's
Yes.
not required.
Yes. Absolutely. I love to even say that it's better to be the expert in being human,
Yeah,
because in that being human, it also is an acknowledgement that we don't know it all.
yeah,
And this is something that also invites other people to be able to share and have input about their experiences of being human and how they experience the world. So that when we get to that, where do we go from here? It's definitely a we thing. It's
yeah,
not an I, an I, the professional, or I with my, with my titles or with my resources. It's I as a human being and you as a human being. Where do we go from here together? Where we both come to this point in the road where we both decided, all right, now I would like to start to talk about, or I would like to speak to, maybe how you've experienced this, or what goes from here. And also, there is a huge component of peer support that is about that lived experience,
yeah,
but sometimes you have to use wisdom on when to share that lived experience and when to let others be able to ask for it,
mm,
without being able, without feeling like you're overshadowing what somebody is going through, and you're really validating and really holding space for them to be able to process and go through their bravery, really, of being able to share and just and speak to everything that they just spoke to you in that time and in that space.
yeah. It's like it's not part of the job description to
Yeah.
convince this person that you can relate.
Yes.
If you're like for me, the job description is accept this person and love them
Yes. Absolutely.
and be with them. And
Yeah.
if they're saying like, I feel like no one knows what this is like,
Yeah.
then I can be like, well, I can relate, and
Yeah.
like I've had this. But
Yeah.
when I'm relating, it's because I'm relating that it's an extension of the real relationship.
Yes.
Like
Absolutely.
it's like for
Absolutely.
a purpose.
Yeah.
So I want to take a moment now to look at some examples of
Yeah.
like what this creating this type of alliance. Because for me, the word that I use for this, like you're like the togetherness, the usness that you are
Yeah.
describing. For me, the word is alliance. Like
Yes.
being like, so if I'm coming to you for support, if I'm suffering and I'm coming to you for support, what I want them like the term, I mean, I want to know that you're on my side,
Yes.
right? And I know the word ally gets thrown around and means a lot of different things in a lot of different contexts, but that idea of that like we have an alliance, that like
Yeah.
you're there for me,
Absolutely.
that feeling. And so yeah, let's look at like what it looks like to build alliance in a
Yeah.
couple different ways.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna role play
Okay.
somebody,
Okay.
and yeah, so I'm gonna role play actually. So I've just recently was giving a consultation to a therapist, and we were working on this client that was working with him. So I'm gonna bring that person in
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and just like see like how you would create an alliance there, and then
Yeah,
we'll switch, and you can bring somebody.
absolutely.
Okay, so um, so I'm going through this breakup, and the my ex partner is not totally out of my life. She still comes and like takes care of our dogs sometimes, and so I still need to see her. But I can't stop thinking about our relationship, and sometimes I just cry and I can't get out of bed, and um, I feel like I can't really work, and I just don't want to see anybody, and yeah, I'm just like I don't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah, I could thank you for sharing that. First, I could definitely understand how hard that must be for you, to be in that space. It seems like you really still care about this person. And I want to, and correct me if I'm wrong in that, but I know that even from my own experiences of going through really difficult processes of having to let something go or going through a certain separation, um, moving on and having, you know, that person still there and having that reminder could be so difficult, and it's hard to be able to step out of that as you know, as you continue to see this. um, how do you feel about that, about that person still being in your space?
And just every time I think about her or see her, it just makes me feel like terrible about myself. Like I
Mm.
just feel like no one is ever gonna love me, and yeah, I totally screwed this up, and I'm gonna screw everything up.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a hard thing to go through. um, I would like to say that there sunshine does come back, you know. And if you could have the best case scenario, what you would like to see this relationship move to or move on to, what would that look like? Could you try to maybe share with me what that would be?
And I just want to feel okay again.
Yeah.
I just want to feel like life's worth living. I think that's like what I'm hoping for.
What does okay look like?
Yeah. I think it's like that when I wake up in the morning, I feel like there's like a reason to live.
Yeah. And are there times that you tried to talk um to your partner about how this is making you feel, or do you feel comfortable, or do you want to talk to your partner about this, how this is making you feel?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like anytime I try to talk to her, it just makes things worse.
Hmm. What are I know that for myself, would you mind me if I could, would you be okay if I shared some of the ways that I've tried to um get over some of the separations or hardships that I've gone through?
Hmm. I mean, I guess like what I yeah, I mean, it just like I just want to feel like okay about life. Like I just want to feel like yeah, I feel like that's like what I'm looking for. I don't know whatever's gonna I don't know what I can do.
Yeah. It's it's not easy when you still care about a person and having to have that person in your space and continuously be reminded of what that felt like. But I just want to let you know that I'm here to be here with you and make you feel like it's not, life is not worthless. As I get to know you and I start to understand the person that you are, I really value. Yeah, the fact that you're able to be vulnerable and share this this experience with me. Um, I I want to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what it is that you're going through, and how that okayness, or how that happiness could come back into your life. Um, could
Mm.
you share some of this? Can you share some of that with me? Have you, are there pieces, or days or moments in your life where you feel like, I
Mm.
don't know, maybe there's a glimpse, or there's an okayness there?
Do you do you know what I'm talking like? Do you know what that feels like? I'm just sort of feeling like, yeah, I don't know. Like it's hard. Like I feel like, yeah, right now it's hard for me to imagine feeling that.
Um, yeah, I recently went through a separation, and I it was difficult for me because having a child involved in that piece, um, you want to stay connected, and you want to evolve in that relationship, but you have to make sure that you're healthy enough to evolve in a way that brings healing to yourself. And that's the most important piece, because a better and healed and wholer you becomes better for that entire situation, and it becomes better for you to be, even for myself, even to be able to have seen from a different perspective what this could evolve to, what this could grow to. But I needed to allow myself to go through the hurt, and I had to be okay with that, and understand that that was a process of it. Pain and disappointment it's a human emotion. When we go through hard things, you know,
Mhm.
we have to have the space to be able to feel those things, and those things bring about the growth, because we don't have the power to change other people, you know, and we don't have the know-it-all to just snap our fingers and be able to just get over something. And so going through that process, and having to actually get dirty in the mud and come out the other side, is, for me, was such a necessary piece to get in tune and in touch, and really investigate within myself what pieces I had the power to change, and what I didn't have the power to change. um,
Yes, I want to take a moment to
yeah,
step out of the role play, because that was
yeah,
the point that I feel like there's like like for me playing that person,
yeah,
something that clicked when you started talking about the value
yeah,
of going through the pain and then being able to come out the other side.
yeah,
And so I feel like that there's like we'll talk a little bit through the course of these conversations about
yeah,
like all the different research and
yeah,
science that sort of
yeah,
talks about like what leads to positive outcomes in mental
yeah.
health. But one that you were bringing up there was there was like the sense of alliance and relating, but
Mhm,
there was this optimism in it,
mhm.
right? It was like, especially at the end, I felt like you were willing to get down into the uncomfortable mud that I was in,
Yeah,
and at the same time being like, giving yourself permission to feel that is what, is like what helps you grow through it. And like that's like,
yeah,
it's like this like you made it like this like natural kind of grief process.
yeah,
I was sort of viewing it as like it like a signal that something is broken,
yeah,
to be fixed. And then
yeah,
like in describing it and just relating to it, it made me then feel like, it's not that something's broken and needs to be fixed. This is just like this is like how I'm supposed to react to a lot.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
it's just
think,
a natural
yeah,
pattern. And then and then all of a sudden I felt like together with you. And
yeah. It's so funny, speaking about like just even peer support and the authenticity of it.
yeah,
Even within the role play, going within myself and reaching for that emotion, of of me going through times like that. If and outside of role play, if I had the time.
yeah,
I know that sometimes it takes a lot longer for us to feel comfortable enough to say that in response to somebody, and so this is
yeah,
something that you're seeing happening in quicker time than how a real peer relationship might work. Because it might take, you know 2 or 3 sessions for somebody to be able to build that entire narrative and give you small pieces of what's going on before you can collect everything that you need to make sure that you're really being you're really honoring and taking the time to understand how this is affecting
Yeah.
this person. And I would have even wanted to go a little slower in getting into what we should do, but that's the reality of what peer support is, because even
Yeah.
here within the role play, it happens in our everyday lives. I think we don't even realize sometimes that we're providing peer support, or we're using the practices and carrying on that spirit, because it is, and we practice in our everyday lives. With every interaction that we have from somebody that we see that is looking like they're having a bad day at the grocery store, to a family member that's struggling. And so there's this constant space within humanity, within our reality, that helps us to perfect the who we are as peer counselors, which is what I also really love about what peer support is. It's that the classroom is everywhere that you go.
Yeah, that feeling. It's like it's this calling of wanting
Yeah.
to be of benefit to people who are suffering, and we find people who are suffering everywhere, including ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you have a like a do you want to sort of bring somebody like a role play and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I well, should I just get into it, or I'll
yeah,
explain?
whatever,
Okay.
however you want to do it.
Sweet. So I recently tried to talk to my family about, you know, um, who I'm dating,
Hmm.
and it is somebody of the same sex.
Hmm.
And I've always kept this part hidden. I even moved away from home
Yeah.
so that I could be this person. And it feels like each time that I come back home, I'm putting on this mask and being so dishonest and to myself,
Yeah.
that I'm being, disrespectful to my partner. But I just come from a culture where my family would be so embarrassed if I was able to just openly live this way.
Right.
And each time I come home, I want to be with my family. They mean a lot to me. We grew up in a very, very close knit relationship. But this one piece has started to overshadow all our memories, everything that we are.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to move forward with that. I tried to talk to my mom a little bit about it, but my dad is just, and she was even kind of had a very um, angry and
Mm.
fed up response.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me know if I'm hearing. Um, you've been close to your family for a lot of your life. They've been an important part of your life. And you're dating someone who's the same sex, and you want to stay close to your family, but it doesn't seem like, at least right now, it's hard to imagine them being able to accept that. And so you have this feeling of like, I want to be close with them, I want to have them in my life. I also want to honor myself and my partner, and I don't want to hide this about me because that is painful too. And it's like this thing of like, I want connection and I want to be authentic, and it's like hard to imagine how that could work out.
Yeah, yeah. And I just, I feel like I want to be protective of them too, because I know that this is probably going to um, make them judged in our community.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
it's a big piece of staying connected. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know, and it's really starting to weigh on me. And sometimes my partner gets upset
Yeah.
uh, each time that I'm going home, because she knows that I'm gonna be someone else when I'm there.
And so it's like, and you're saying, so it's like, it's not just your parents, but it's also like what would happen, like what the impact that it would have on your parents and the greater community to be able to, and yeah, and so it's like this feeling of like you're wanting your own authenticity, you're wanting your connection with your partner, like that's an important connection, and then your connection with your parents, and then the larger community, and it's like this. It's like you're in the middle of this conflict,
Yeah.
and it's like doesn't there's not like a clear path forward for how to resolve it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that I'm probably not the only one who has gone through this, and especially being in like,
Yeah.
in this revolutionary time.
Yes.
I want to be a part of that revolution. I want to make it safer for other people who come behind me to be able to express themselves.
That was my next question of like, have you been around people who've negotiated this kind of conflict in a way that feels like that's how I want to be able to do it or how I wish I could? Like, can you even imagine somebody working through this like from like at all?
I know that there are people in my community that also identify, with who I am and who they are,
Yeah.
but it's just this understood norm that it's not safe
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
in my community to speak about it. So I think we all have this just,
Yeah.
but I do want to, and I just don't know if I'm willing to compromise my relationship with my family for it.
Yeah. 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 I mean that's really clear to me. So at least for the people that you know in your life, there's not like a path that seems obvious, right? There's not like oh, this person did this and it worked out.
Yeah.
It got to a place. Like without that, it's just like you're just kind of like sitting in the middle of this conflict. And just
Yeah.
like, yeah, and it's like this thing. I mean, like, can you imagine how you'd hope it would go? Like or can you imagine what a resolution, like the state that you'd want to get to, I guess is what I'm saying. Can you imagine what that would be like?
I can't even imagine it because I've never even seen or heard, someone having to make this type of decision and what that would look like. And if it comes back, if like do you come, like, does your family come back? Does the situation come back? Or
Yeah.
is it just a pick or choose of two different paths in life?
I feel like I can relate to that space that you're in right now. Like there's no like it's hard to imagine what a win looks like. Like it's hard to imagine like okay, like this is what I'm trying to get to. I know that this is like, and so in that space, yeah, just what that feels like of like, yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, like what that experience is like for you. Like in moments in my life, it's sort of like wishing that there was like, oh, I wish there was like some like a mentor or somebody that could be,
Yeah.
hey, this is how you get through this.
Yeah.
And sometimes there isn't, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like hard to find. At least maybe there is somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe I'll try to start reaching out and trying to find
Yeah,
people who have gone through this.
yeah,
There has to be. All
yeah.
right, so I think, yeah, that was good. That was good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's perfect because it was perfect closing because at the end it just like brought it all
Yeah,
together so beautifully for me. And I love that we don't always have the answers, and so
yeah,
we don't have to fake the funk
sure.
around it. And so being able to say, I know what that feels like to wish that you had that. And so, but I'm not going to force myself to be that for you. I think that also works within, which is what I love about this platform. It's also that if something is going on and a person says, you know, if they want to pick a different individual, if they want to pick a different scenario that really speaks to them,
Yeah.
a part of peer support is being able to usher,
Yeah.
being able
Yeah.
to name that thing,
Yeah.
you know, and being okay with naming it,
Yeah.
and helping a person come to that realization of what that would look like and what that would feel like to have, you know, that example, or to have that mentor,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean, that exact piece of a journey that just like so exactly mirrors what you're going through.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so that was that, and then yeah, for me it was like it's this thing of wanting to just understand, right?
Yes,
And,
yes,
and it's like, and this idea of like, I'm not gonna so especially like this as like a role play because I don't know what community this person is coming from, so I
yeah, yeah,
obviously
yeah,
can't be like, oh, you just do this.
yes,
The I mean, especially the like looking for like, well, what resources in your life are there, like
yes,
are there people that have negotiated this? Because
yeah,
if the answer is yes, then it's like, well, let's tap into those people and let's like help you find them.
yes,
And if the answer is no, then like let me just be with you. I mean, like I just like for me right now in this moment in my like, so this is not a role play, this is in my personal life. I'm a
yeah,
single dad.
yeah,
My wife passed away now almost 2 years ago,
yeah,
and like how to be a single full-time father and have some balance
yeah,
between parenting and work and a social life and a spiritual life.
yeah,
It's like I can't think of any one person that I know that actually is like
yeah,
raising a young child with balance in
yeah,
their life. And
yeah,
I'm looking for that balance, and I'm like, has anyone found that? And I'm like,
yeah,
not really finding it. So
yeah,
that was what was happening for me. Of just like, yeah, I know what it's like to be like, I wish that someone could be like, hey, this is how you set things up and it'll work
yeah.
for you.
I think you, like, and you so beautifully spoke to, sometimes you don't have to match the experience,
Yeah.
but it's important to find a bridge to that emotion, or,
Yeah.
you know, what, because we can all relate to what it feels like to search for
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah.
We all know what it feels like to look for something that's not maybe there or accessible to you right now,
Yeah.
but you desperately need. We all know what it's like to fear. We all know what it's like. And so sometimes it's even more important to find those pieces and those bridges that really helps that other person understand, that feel like you're working to really meet them where they're at,
Yeah.
not by a specific situation or some isolated event, but within the experience of being human, and
Yeah.
that, you know, and that understanding between us of you know, of our humanity, and what that looks like when it's played out in different worldviews and scenarios.
Yeah. Um, as we're going through this, there's two questions that are coming up for me.
Yes.
Specific things that people should avoid
Okay. Yes.
in trying to support, like what are like, they could be like in the form of pet peeves or anything like that. Like what comes up for
Yeah.
you?
I think avoiding. I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Yeah.
that like, that's a, for me. That's a really big one. It was like a very triggering thing for me, because sometimes people haven't revealed all pieces, and it takes that process and that relationship to develop before you get to that piece. And so to rush that you know, that phrase could really start to turn somebody off, just even from my own experiences of interacting with the mental health system and keeping so much of my trauma hidden,
Mhm.
and giving bits and pieces where I felt it was safe enough to, and to have somebody respond with, I know what you're going through, kind of like just shut me down, you know, on the inside, because I was like, I haven't even revealed all of it, you know,
Yep.
all of what I'm going through. So relatability does not have to come with the phrase of
Yeah.
exactness, you know, of exactness, like validating what somebody is going through. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to come with you fully accepting and taking on this stance of complete, you know what I mean, like of complete understanding. Sometimes it takes time to be able to build to that. Another piece is othering. I think is really, really dangerous, to put somebody like, I don't know what that would feel like. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
so it's like, I will do the work to really try to meet you where you're at. I think that's an oath, like a soul oath that you should take.
Yeah.
Um, um, but to just shut it down with, whoa, like, that's just like, I have no idea. Like there's, I mean, there's times and spaces like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't know what it's like to be a Black woman, and I wouldn't know what it's like, you know what I mean, to be a white man.
Yeah.
But in that space of us both being human and really committing to this relationship and building it, I think it's open and honest to say, you can express yourself the way that you want to express it, and I'll never other you to say I'll never reach to understand what that emotion was for you,
Yeah.
or how that experience affected you or made you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like that thing of like, um, don't try to convince the person that you do know what they're going through, what
Yes.
they're feeling. Like, don't like go in this like I'm trying to convince you. And also don't try to like do this thing of like, well, I could never, like, I
Yes.
could never
Yeah, I could
imagine.
never put myself there. Right.
Yeah, like both of those. The thing I want to add to that is like, well, I guess like one thing is about being defensive.
Hmm.
Um, so much of it for me comes down to uh, if someone is being present with someone who's suffering is
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like it's so the way that I would say it is being present with someone who's suffering, it takes energy.
It does.
And if you feel like you're having a positive impact, it can feed you, it can feel
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's not the type of it feels like a growthful, difficult thing
Yes.
as opposed to like an easy fun thing,
Yeah.
right? And so it's not supposed to feel comfortable or easy to be present with someone who's suffering.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing for me is like um, if I'm not aware or not in touch with like the discomfort that's coming up for me,
Yeah.
then I'm either going to start to other you. I'm going to
Yep.
try to fix.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to um, get you to make a change without any consent or without any understanding. And all of that stuff. I think that I would say like at Peer Collective. I mean, you and I watch these videos, so we have all, the way that people apply to be peer counselors is they record these videos
Yeah.
of themselves responding to really challenging moments, like
Right.
simulated moments from peer counseling. And some of my pet peeves are, um, I'm sorry you feel like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that thing of like, so what that sounds like, it's not like I'm relating to what you're feeling or I can imagine what that would feel like for you.
Hmm.
It's like I wish you didn't feel the way you feel,
Yeah.
which is like so much the opposite of
Yes.
acceptance and presence.
Yes.
So I feel like that's like one thing that I see that's a real issue. Or the other thing is like um, so many people doing like, well, everything you're saying is valid, but
Yes.
and it's like this thing of like you didn't touch what I'm feeling.
Yes.
You're like you're saying that, but you're not
Right.
with me in it.
Right.
I don't feel like you're willing to be
Yeah.
with me in it. You're just you're jumping over it.
Yeah.
You don't like I'm in the mud. Climb down and be with me in it.
Yeah.
Be with me in it from a perspective that this is a place we can get out of.
Yeah.
But it's also a place that I'm capable of going. I'm not scared to go into the mud with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the thing of like I'm not alone
Yeah.
if you can come into it with me.
Absolutely. I think it's also like it speaks to respecting the way somebody tells their story. Everybody has a different style, and everybody has a different way of being able to narrate, especially when we talk about the mental health field.
Yeah.
When it not referencing somebody's diagnosis,
Yeah.
Like I think it's really, really important, and not making it in that stance of what you know about depression. Like, yes, there is a chemical imbalance there. Like I think like avoiding that and allowing that person to be able to tell their narrative in the ways that feel comfortable to them, and really respecting it. I think that, I watched before someone who found a lot of success in the mental health structure, and through conventional therapy and counseling and medication.
Sure.
I am not allowed to take that away from them. I am not allowed to correct them with my experience or my story, from what didn't work for me. It's not our job to sit there and be able to divert somebody from where they find their supports. And it speaks right back to looking within somebody's life, and really ushering them to the natural supports that already exist, and having that encouragement, and really giving them the space to be able to build the muscles that make them feel like they could advocate and speak openly within a strength-based space, to whatever entity that may be. I think it's also super important.
Yeah, and in some future trainings that we planned out, we're going to go into more depth about
Yeah.
the topics that Moon just brought up about, like, what should I know about depression in order to offer
Yeah.
support. Um, so flipping for the last piece for this like training, or this first episode, um, the opposite of kind of pet peeves, what to avoid. Um, so if we're going to use the term supportive presence,
Yes.
the way to show up for someone who's suffering, how would you describe supportive presence?
Body language is such a huge part. We're in such a strange space right now where we're encouraged to stay away from each other. And so if it is within the video component of it, it's like me really wanting to lean in and listen to what you're saying. It's me not being distracted, and looking at you and giving you that space, and not making you feel like you're competing with anything else around me, and giving you like all of my attention. It's also really asking, instead of just, if you have a question and you want to understand me, the clarifying question for me is, it's comforting, because it helps us both to be able to process what I just said. And even if you didn't understand it, and like I said, it's clear, but if you it makes me feel like you authentically want to know and understand what I'm going through. And you don't want to move on, and just like, you just kind of like treat it like just a general kind of like a prop, like set of checklists to just sit there and listen, to really be present
Yeah.
in what I'm saying, and not what I'm saying only in the general, but in every instance, and in every scenario, and in every description that I'm giving you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll speak a little bit. So like, um, there's a ton of clinical research. There's, going back 75 years to like the first clinical like a dedicated clinical psych research that Carl
Yeah.
Rogers put together, like analyzing transcripts of
Yeah.
counseling sessions. What we've known this whole time is that there are specific things that people can do. The more that they do them, the more helpful they are to someone who's in distress. And one really important one is warmth and emotional expression.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not flat. I'm like, oh yes, interesting.
Yes.
And it's like I'm like, you can tell like I
Yeah.
have some expression, but that I'm coming across in a way that's experienced by the other person as warm and open,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like inviting, like I like. And then I think what you were talking about, that curiosity,
The humble curiosity.
humble curiosity that
Yeah.
I want to know. And then what came up a lot when we were doing those role plays was that there's a sort of like a hope, or kind of like an optimism that that is, I'm not trying to sell you on the
Yeah.
idea that it's going to be okay,
Yeah.
but that there's like a sense that I authentically believe,
Yes.
like I'm being authentic. You get a
Yeah.
feel that I'm being authentic, that you can read me,
Yes.
that I'm warm and I like you,
Yes.
but that I'm not scared of where you are, because I believe that there's hope.
Yes.
And so for me, if that describes how you're relating to somebody, then I would call that supportive presence.
Yeah.
And you can do it, all of that can happen without saying anything.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
imagine you are warm, you're open, you're curious, and you're hopeful
Mm.
with your mouth shut. Like
Yeah.
you can be that way in talking.
Yeah.
You can also have you can have all of those qualities just as a listener.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Cool.
for sure.
Well, Moon, thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah,
you. This is great.
yeah. Okay, so this is episode 1, and tune in. We're going to be recording more and more of these.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.